Polish Jewish history is a story of conflict and solidarity. Before World War II, anti-Semitism was visible. Jews were the largest minority group and there was tension. We mustn't whitewash that part of history. But this is the only side of the story we ever hear, and the press today continues to promote the myth that Poland is historically and perpetually anti-Semitic. It isn't universally true. There is a story to tell in Poland about Jewish-Polish solidarity, and today Poland is doing more than ever to keep the memory of Jews who suffered alive, investing in Holocaust memorials and Jewish history. I wanted to see this for myself in Warsaw, so I headed to their largest museum about Jewish-Polish history. I'm here outside the Museum of History of Polish Jews. It's one of the newest and most expensive museums in Poland, erected in 2013, and it covers 1,000 years of Jewish-Polish history. And I'm here for a reason. I'm here to dispel the myths and the lies that are peddled by the mainstream press that Poland is a racist, anti-Semitic country. It's simply not true. Now, the discussion started among the press about Poland being anti-Semitic when a piece of draft legislation was being pushed that criminalized the use of the term Polish death camps. Now, it's worth mentioning that that's changed since, and I'll go into that in a minute, but it's also worth mentioning why it's important, because Poland wasn't a willing participant in the Holocaust. It was tragic for all people in Poland. There was a Polish government operating in exile in London that controlled underground states still in Poland, and within these underground states it was punishable by death for people to essentially snitch on Jews. For anyone who revealed the location or the hiding places of Jews in Poland, it was punishable by death in those states. On the other hand, in Nazi-occupied Poland, those who took in a Jew during this period, they were punished with death too. So people were living in fear. People had to, if they got a knock on the door from a Jewish family, please take us in, help us, they had to instantly decide whether they could help these people, whether they could risk their own families being killed. The Polish didn't want this to happen here. And it's worth mentioning that there were Eastern European states that willingly took part in the Holocaust. Poland didn't. So not so long ago, Poland and Israel met to discuss the legislation, and it changed. It went from a criminal offence to a civil offence. The use of the term Polish death camps was changed to a civil offence, and it's not really all that enforced. It's really just a message to show people that they didn't want those death camps here. And Israel and Poland released a joint statement which said, "Over the last 30 years, the contacts between our countries and societies have been based on a well-grounded trust and understanding. Israel and Poland are devoted long-term friends and partners, cooperating closely with each other in the international arena, but also as regards the memory and education of the Holocaust. This cooperation has been permeated by a spirit of mutual respect for identity and historical sensitivity, including the most tragic periods of our history." And yet there's still much more to this story. There remains conflict and disagreement over Poland's involvement in the Holocaust, and not everyone in Israel is pleased about the measures Poland has taken to clear its name. Nobody is denying the existence of anti-Semitism in Poland before the war, but it is wrong to claim that anti-Semitism was universal, that the Poles didn't suffer, and that the death camps were Polish. They were Nazi camps installed and created by the Nazis and used to kill and torture Polish Jews. And in fact, more Christian Poles have since been recognized as righteous among the nations, people who risked their own lives to help the Jews, than any other country in Europe. That says a lot about the bravery and decency of the Polish people. Anti-Semitism did exist in Poland, but things have changed drastically. Polish people who experienced the brutality of the Nazis stood side by side with Jewish people, fought authoritarianism, and today enjoy a closer relationship than ever before. It's important to see this side of history and recognize how the tragedies of the Second World War brought these two communities together. One event in Warsaw tells this story very well, and that's the Ghetto Uprising. I went to the remains of a Jewish ghetto bunker in Warsaw to find out more. There are many stories to tell about Jewish-Polish solidarity. Of course, that relationship has historically been complicated, but that solidarity has always been there. And today I'm in what used to be the Jewish ghetto in Warsaw, and I'm at the site of a bunker that was used during what's called the Ghetto Uprising, where Polish Jews fought against Nazi occupation of Poland.
This was an uprising that lasted 3 weeks, and it was very bloody indeed, but it also shows the solidarity historically between the Poles and Jews. At the very beginning of this uprising, they raised a Polish flag and a Star of David to show that solidarity. And also the Poles cooperated and worked with the Jews during this uprising before the Poles had the Warsaw Uprising of their own. There was also an operation called Action Ghetto. This was the code name for the operation where Polish people helped Polish Jews by giving them weapons, even blowing up the walls of the ghetto to help them get out and fight the Nazis. Now, of course, Polish solidarity was complicated. Not everybody was innocent in these Nazi crimes, but the Polish people were suffering too, and they helped the Jews. And interestingly, the Polish government in exile in London supported this fight greatly. And in 1943, the leader of that Polish government in exile told the BBC, "The uprising started in the ghetto at 4 a.m. Since that moment, fighting has taken place. The largest crime in the history of mankind is being perpetrated. I know that you are helping the suffering Jews in any way you can. I thank you for it, and I ask you to keep aiding the Jews." Seeing and discovering this history in Poland has confirmed to me that what the mainstream media is saying about Poland are simply flat-out lies and myths. We have the most pro-Israel Polish government today that has ever existed, the Law and Justice government. And the solidarity between the Jews and Poles is long, it's historic, and while it's being complicated, of course, and nuanced in many ways, that solidarity has long been there, and it is still there today. The mainstream media are lying to you about Poland. The mainstream media is lying to you about many states in the West, and that's why new media is so important, and we're exposing it. If you'd like to help us cover our modest expenses for this trip, please go to rebelpoland.com.